Talk to me about the FOIA requests. Are these limited to anything that deal with Occupy, or do we have a sense that that these fusion centers were doing the same thing with Tea Party rallies, or with 9/12 rallies, or rallies where
Well,
people are invited to bring their guns and are
right.
bringing loaded guns? I mean, is this? In other words, we know that that on Facebook there are different people who are trying to. I think it was on July 4th, have a rally where thousands of people would show up with their loaded guns in public view. Do we know if Department of Homeland Security is infiltrating these groups? If they are sharing this information with private entities? I mean, how broad are these FOIA requests?
So the FOIA requests that were put out by DBA Press and Center for Media and Democracy were linked to Occupy and to ALEC. So they sought all documents related that had those words in there. So there weren't searches for patriot groups or NRA groups or Second Amendment groups. This was focused on Occupy and on ALEC protests. So I can't answer whether Homeland Security is doing it across the board or not, but they're certainly doing it here, and they certainly weren't paying attention in Boston when there was a real terrorist threat.
I mean, it would be fascinating to find that out. I mean, because, one, in terms of in the event that they are, it would obviously, from a political standpoint, create a broader coalition that is clearly going to be needed to try and shut down part of this apparatus. And if they're not, it sort of begs the question: how do you justify choosing these people just based upon the fact that they're, I guess, anti-corporate in some respect?
Right, that's what was happening here, and I do agree. There are people on the right, especially libertarians, Rand Paul, who genuinely are concerned about our civil liberties here, and I think that they are potential allies in issues such as this, because it's outrageous how much time and energy the police are using to monitor nonviolent people exercising their First Amendment rights. They may be anti-corporate, or maybe they're pro-gun too, but so long as they're nonviolent and they're exercising their First Amendment rights, the government really has, it may have a legal right now after 9/11, but it has no moral right to be hovering over us, checking out our Facebook pages, and infiltrating, sending people undercover with false pretenses to our meetings, if we're just trying to exercise what our founders enshrined in the First Amendment.
Right, and I can't imagine that even those people who passed the Patriot Act were at least touting provisions where we would be subsidizing the intel gathering of private corporations. I mean, because that to me just sounds like another total ripoff here.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you're right. When they're doing, they're the advance team for the corporations. They're doing intel for the corporations, and that's not why we send our tax dollars to Homeland Security.
It's stunning. And what else? Is there anything else from this report, which I know just came out today? You've obviously had a chance to look at it in advance, but I'm wondering what else do you anticipate coming out of this report?
Well, the other interesting thing that I saw and I wrote about in this cover story in the Progressive Spying on Occupy Activists is that there actually was coordination among law enforcement agencies around the country in many big cities. So when we saw that crackdown on Occupy happen, on a weekend in various cities, it wasn't a coincidence. These law enforcement agencies were planning their responses all along. And so there was this integrated effort to squash people's protests.
And what's the mechanism in which they were coordinating? I mean, it's one thing, I think, police departments talking to police departments on some level. Obviously, you get into a gray area. It's not surprising police departments share things like tactics and things that have been effective in terms of policing in general. But I would imagine a nationwide coordination of the day that they're going to do this, or and if it's we're talking about federal dollars here, it gets increasingly problematic.
Yeah, I found it troubling, and I found it an answer to a question I had in my mind when I saw that crackdown happen, and it just didn't seem like it was possible that it could have been a coincidence, and now it appears that wasn't a coincidence after all that there were these organized efforts to try to quash a movement of people exercising their First Amendment rights.
And who provided this coordination? In other words, was this a top-down type of situation, or was it the police departments on their own reaching out to other police departments?
I think it was the latter, but the FBI was involved with it too. So, in like October 2011, I saw a document that said representatives from 13 police agencies took part in this telephone conference to plan effective strategies to deal with Occupy in future days and weeks. And, there were representatives from major metropolitan police forces around the country. I don't know if the FBI instigated that teleconference or whether Homeland Security did or whether it was, from Phoenix or not, but they were working together.
And do we have a sense of just how much, what the distribution of resources is being used here? In other words, if I don't know why in Boston we did not see more. Okay, they perceived that the warnings they got multiple warnings from the Russians that went to the FBI, went to a Department of Homeland Security. For some reason, this was not picked up by, presumably it was in the Fusion Center, but the Boston Police, the Intel Division, didn't get it. I wonder how many stories there are, if there's any way for us to tell just, look, this is an agency. These fusion centers function like any other agency. You have your priorities. You go after certain leads. If there was no other leads dealing or no other work to be done in Boston, but for these reports about Tsaranov, then I imagine he would have gotten a lot more scrutiny, as opposed to the fact, well, there were other things to do. We had to chase Occupy. I wonder how many, how prevalent that dynamic is across the country.
Well, I think that's a real crucial question on priorities too. And also, how many times does Homeland Security or the FBI or the CIA get warnings from Russia or another country that there's a potential terrorist in our country? I bet it's not that many. I'd like to know the answer to that. So why aren't they going after those people who've got to be a higher priority than the person who's saying, we are the 99% and holding a sign denouncing the 1%? If you're in law enforcement and you're trying to figure out who's really going to pose a threat to us, it's that person with the sign?
Well, I think on some level, what we're seeing here is that if you perceive these, and I think, to a certain extent, the story you have written and this dynamic reveals some of this. If you perceive that these bureaucrats and these law enforcement people working in these fusion centers perceive that their client are these corporations, there's a far more sort of an incentive to provide that information than information that just may be less, sexy or demanded in some respects. And that is what seems to be the problematic here.
And the other thing is, if you're calling everybody a terrorist, all the Occupy protesters potential terrorists, then you can't really distinguish one really threatening terrorist, the Tsarnaev brother, from the person holding the Occupy sign. And so it's just a total blurring of distinctions and priorities.
And will you just comment briefly on, you tell this story of the infiltrator, and it really, in my mind, shows the sort of the incredible sloppiness and the just a bizarre perception that police the police seem to have of the Occupy movement. And it also speaks to the point of, I think in a broader sense, that these fusion centers, is there any value to them in terms of our national security? Because, it seems to me like almost like the NBA. It's one thing to say that, and we have a CIA that has missed a lot of has had huge intelligence failures. But I also got to imagine that there are only so many people who are good at this, and that if we were to triple the size of the NBA, the quality of professional basketball playing in this country would also greatly diminish. It seems to me that what we're seeing, with these fusion centers and who they sent to spy on Occupy is a perfect example of you've got people here who don't really seem to know what they're doing, and they're just sort of playing secret spy, but don't really have a clue as to what is involved.
Yeah, well, the guy they sent undercover said he was a Mexican national and a homeless person, happened to be in great physical shape, and happened to be an undercover police officer that someone recognized from going to a coffee house in the area a couple years prior to that. But the police loved having him in there. One document that I saw said. And the guy went by the name of Saul Bosses. Saul attended an organizational meeting for the Disrupt ALEC movement last night and talked about the flyers they had and said, we're going to rely on Saul to get more information for us. So it's just classic undercover stuff that was illegal before the Patriot Act, and now they can do this. But as to the larger point, I mean, the fusion centers haven't uncovered an actual terrorist threat. There was a report from the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs less than a year ago that talked about all the failings of these fusion centers. And one of the things that bothers me about the fusion centers, above all, gets to the point about these private companies, because there are representatives from private companies in the fusion center. What in the world are they doing in there? Why are our taxpayers, tax-paying dollars going to support private companies when they're supposed to be going to support law enforcement? And that gets to the distorting priorities that's so much a part of this story. Cops and Homeland Security actually helping Wall Street rather than looking for real terrorist threats.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think this story can be summed up in many respects that Homeland Security is just another racket. Yeah,
I mean, it's another candy store for corporations. I mean, that's the ability of huge companies in this country just to gobble up everything, but they've infiltrated Homeland Security, too.
Matthew Rothschild writing the story will be in the June 2013 of the issue of The Progressive. Thanks so much for joining us today.